I've always known that I was an artist, that I am an artist. And I know that's a big statement, but there's a difference between knowing and knowing. You know what I'm saying? My earliest memories with art is back in elementary school. I can remember being in art class, and I went to a school where you wore uniforms, and we were in art class, and our desks were lined up sort of in a U shape with the teacher in the middle. And I remember we had these large windows, or maybe they were just large to me because, I was so little. And I remember sitting along where the windows were behind me, and we were doing art. And I remember the light just shining down on my artwork. And at that moment, I just knew, like, this is what I want to do. And the evidence of me creating something, like having something tangible in my hands, that was just all I needed. And my art teacher, seeing someone, an adult who was being an artist and teaching art, that was all the evidence I really needed. That it was just so obvious to me in that moment. And the memory is just so clear. Like, this is my thing. This is what I want to do. Fast forward, I remember in high school, I was about a junior at this time, and some of the senior girls were looking at a fashion magazine, back before the internet. I guess us older millennials will remember looking at fashion magazines. So some of the girls were looking at fashion magazines, and I remember watching them be all excited about the senior prom. And I walked by and I was looking at all these dresses, and I was like, I can draw that. So I did. I made a whole bunch of sketches of different dresses. And I remember one girl in particular, she actually used one of my sketches, and she knew a lady that sewed, and she had one of my dresses made. And that was even more confirmation for me, like, wow, I can really do this thing. But unfortunately, and fortunately, that wasn't my journey. I'm an immigrant. I emigrated to the United States as a little girl. And like most immigrants, my story is not unique in that. For me, it was about survival. It was about doing the practical thing, the thing that you knew you were going to do that would really ensure you to survive, right? To get a job, to make money, to put food on the table. It took a while. And sometimes it still is sort of difficult for me to reconcile these ideas in my head of survival versus this burning passion that I had to create. And like I said, my story is not unique. I think most people who come from humble beginnings, immigrants, people of color, can really identify with this story of survival, of doing what needed to be done, to make sure that you were good. So over time, I put my art away. I was convinced that it just wasn't the thing to do. It became not so obvious, where it was obvious before in my younger years that this was just my thing. Over time, it was made clear to me, just with different messaging, that it wasn't my path. It wasn't the thing to do. It wasn't the thing that was going to guarantee my livelihood, my survival, and I'd say even my happiness. In some way, I made that connection that it would not guarantee my happiness. So I put it to the side and I focused on what needed to be done, right? I went to college. Fast forward, I got a good practical job. I became a mom. I got married and was just living the life, a normal, everyday life. And then 2020 happened. So, of course, I think we can pretty much all remember where we were at that time. And we all, I think, took a collective pause. There was so much going on in the world, so much tragedy. But I think for a lot of people, there was also, I don't want to call it an awakening, but sort of an awakening of realizing that, I'd say for me, it was realizing that there was so much more that I wanted to do, that I was basically existing in a lot of ways, and I wasn't really living. There was a huge part of my identity that I put to the side. And mind you, when I say I put art to the side, it wasn't that I wasn't doing art here and there, because I always pursued it on my own, but sort of in secret. It was only if you really, really knew me, if you were really, really close to me, that you knew that this was my passion, that this was my love. So I kind of pursued it in secret, I'd say. When I was alone, it was my release point, right? It was a thing that I did to express myself. But I didn't really share it with anyone, really, with anyone. But like I said, 2020 happened and we took a collective pause. And I think a lot of people began to think about their life in a different way. Think about the ways that they can do things differently or better, or asking big questions like, what's my purpose? What am I doing with my life? And I think a lot of us got the chance to really pause and breathe, even though we were homeschooling our kids and watching all of these tragedies happen. We were also taking a moment from the grind, the hustle, and saying, is there something else? Is there something else?